All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Rick here, just back from vacation, great vacation. All right. Today I want to talk about some good stuff relative to your business. Let's face it, folks, we are halfway through the second quarter of the year 2026, where we're going to elevate our mix in 2026. Hopefully you're doing that already because, the market is definitely steady, not ballistic, definitely not slow. It's steady, and so it's a great market for the people that are turning and burning and doing their job. So hopefully you are one of those people, okay? So let's get started. Anybody has a question, hit *6. You can unmutify to testify. Otherwise, we will not hear you. So *6. And make sure if you are going to unmute and ask a question that you make sure you remute yourself, because at that point you can't be remuted on the call. Okay, so if you're using your cell phone, just mute yourself, because we will hear everything once you unmute if you're in an area that's loud. Okay, so let's talk about some things, and I think these are important things as we, hopefully finish the second quarter strong. That's what would be my recommendation. I mean, it's up to you. Your business. That's the great thing about real estate is if it is to be, it is up to me. 10 most powerful two-letter words in the history of real estate. If it is to be, it is up to me. All right, how do you like that? There you go. All right, so and I think number one on my list is agents need to become more advisory. All right, you need to be the expert. And how do you do? By giving good advice. But you can't give advice unless you listen to the whole stories. People are moving for a number of reasons, right? I'm getting divorced. I'm getting married. Someone's retiring. Someone passed away. I need another bedroom so people, you need to know the whole story, right? Then you need to help people understand, okay, why pricing is so important. Help them understand market timing. What's the average days on market? What are you looking to accomplish? You need to become very good at negotiating, which is really good. Or I shouldn't say it's easier when you're dealing with strictly motivated people. Okay, once again, so there you go. There's another one. You need to make sure they're motivated. All right, and helping people avoid emotional decisions, I think, is really good. Like a lot of times in today's market, you get an offer, and 3 months later, they would kill to have that same offer. Give them examples. All right, folks, now listen. 6 months ago, I had the Joneses over on Oak Street, and they made this exact mistake I'm trying to help you avoid making. Okay, so when it's close, sometimes an offer comes in quick. You have to explain to them there's a pool of buyers out there waiting for your home to come on the market. So it's not like, okay, oh my God, I priced it so well that, no. It's because they're waiting for your home to come on the market. And once they're exposed to your home, which is instantaneous, okay, now you have all this audience. Well, if you eliminate that audience, now we're just getting the new people that come on, right? So it's very important that you understand that splash factor, I would call it, and why that's so important, okay? And don't blow it. The immediate exposure to the market is a lot of times the best, okay? So there you go. All right, so any questions about that? Once again, unmutify to testify. And you do that by hitting *6 on your phone. Okay, communication speed. All right, that's my number 2 on my list. In other words, answer people quickly. Okay, so your ability to communicate quickly with people will make the difference. Responsiveness creates trust. It's exactly what it does. And today, in any world, responsiveness creates trust. When you don't answer or you make people wait, they have, I call it being telepathetic. They become telepathic, but it's usually not good, and a lot of times it's true. So don't let people be telepathetic with you, all right? Because they will if you're not responsive quickly. How many times do I hear in my coaching, well, my buyer made an offer and the other agent 2-3 days later hasn't even responded? Can you imagine that? That's why you should be taking every listing in your market if you can, because there's a lot of agents out there that are just not professional. I hate to say it, but I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, but I know our agents here at Berkshire Hathaway are very professional agents because their responsive time is quick. Quick answers, the right answer, follow up consistently. Okay, keep clients informed, even if you don't have an answer. Hey, John, Sally, I don't have an answer right now. I'm letting you know I'm still trying to find out. I'm still on it. I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still here. People lose confidence when you don't communicate, and it disappears quickly. And a lot of times, when people get emotionally turned off from you, you can't turn it back on. And then they ask to work with somebody else and so forth. All right, and in today's world too, I would say that there's even some sellers' concern about the market. You need to make sure you're definitely communicating quickly to keep that concern to a minimum. All right, proactive people, both with your prospecting, with your communication, with your lead follow-up, with your accuracy, all of that is completely important. So that was number 2 on my list. See, number 3 on my list is, hold on a second here, I have it somewhere. Be the expert. And I kind of started like that. Be the expert. All right. Because they're looking at all kinds of national headlines that aren't true. Right. When I used to do listing presentations and people would bring up an article, I would say to them, yeah, I wonder how many homes the person that wrote this article sold last year. I sold 70. How many did they sell, I wonder? Yeah. So, they're writing, and everybody, fortunately today, everybody knows the news is a bunch of crap and you can't trust most of it, and most of it is dishonest, but they still watch it. They still listen to it. They're addicted to it. I don't know why. To me, it's so insulting to listen to the news today. It really is. And some of them are worse than others by far. When someone talks to you and says the truth, right away, because there's many truths to different situations, right? The truth is, okay, today in Las Vegas, okay, it's May 13th at 8:07 in the morning, because it's undisputable, okay? But a lot of other stuff is disputable. Like, oh, the market's going to tank, and no, the market's not going to tank, and the sky's not falling down, and But be the expert, meaning, well, let's face it, here at Berkshire Hathaway, you guys have the best marketing on the planet. You have the best brand on the planet. I can give you a number of examples of that, but I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about other agents. I'm talking about the consumer, the one you're interested in working with. In the real estate, in your area, so-and-so they may be the hip thing but I'm talking about to the consumer, you can't beat the name Berkshire Hathaway. You just can't. It's just a fact. All right. So that being said, now, if you're actually being proactive and getting in front of more people, whether it be by social media or phone or door knocking or active open houses or a fine mix of all of them, however you're doing it, now it comes down to, are you the expert in the neighborhood? I wouldn't say that. I would just act like that. Oh, I'm the neighborhood expert. So you call yourself that, they start looking at you differently, I think. Do you know the schools in the area? Do you know what the inventory numbers are? What about new construction in the area? Right? What are the local economic drivers? What are all the different factors that factor into your local real estate market? What's the average days on market? What's the average, amount of inventory currently being held in months? How many active properties are on the market? So be the expert by knowing everything, knowing all the numbers, okay, and also knowing all the good bells and whistles we have from a marketing standpoint, websites and our international marketing and local marketing and everything that we have for them. Okay, so spend some time going over that. If you haven't been through the VAC or the Resource Center looking at the listing presentation in the Maria Hill put together, I would take a look at that. It would be part of my presentation today because it just separates you from everybody else, and that's what you need to do. You need to separate yourself from everybody else because that's how you're going to get paid in this business, and that's how you're going to service your customers even more importantly better. All right, so that's number 3. Number 4 on my list is relationship always beats transactional people. Okay, so if you're a relationship person, you're always going to beat the transaction person. One-on-one. They may do a few more transactions than you, but they're never going to beat, like your repeat and your referral business and so forth. So if you're chasing the relationship versus the transaction, you're always going to do better. And I think eventually you're going to end up doing more deals anyway, right? You got great customer service is like prospecting on steroids. That's how you have to look at it. I do an incredible job for people. I underpromise, I overdeliver. So they tell everybody, right? Then once you build your database to a certain amount, if you're still doing an incredible job, I mean, it really could be your retirement plan too. Ultimately, I just work with the people in there, and you can even refer out other stuff and still make plenty of money if you're maintaining your sphere. Or you could actually sell it. I know people. We've got 2 or 3 agents since I've been here sell their, and one of them for a lot of money. A lot of money. All right. So relationship is what you should be chasing in every transaction. Okay, because once you have the relationship, that'll last forever, and they'll refer people, and some of these people become your best friends. And early on in my business, I didn't see that, but I see that now, how important that is. Staying connected after every closing, becoming their long-term resource, making sure they're getting stuff from you. You are basically their real estate resource for life once they start working with you. And I'm going to tell you something, even other people that buy your listings from another agent, I just adopt them as my own clients once the closing happens, because I know 78%, that's not my number, that's NAR's, 78% of agents never contact their clients after the closing. All right, so I just think that's incredibly important. Now, if you notice, up until now, I haven't even mentioned AI I'm going to say that AI will become important in servicing the things we're talking about, not replacing you or replacing anything that you're doing, just making you more efficient at the stuff that we're talking about. I think a lot of people are getting sidetracked about that. Don't. That's my advice for you. Don't get sidetracked about what AI is good for right now. All right? So there's number 4 on my list. Number 5. Here's a great comment. Marketing in real estate has shifted from selling homes to building credibility. I think that's credibility is that's why the Berkshire Hathaway brand is so important. You're immediately credible with Berkshire Hathaway when they see your brand. Now, they're not going to say that to you a lot of times, but it's there, right? And if what comes out of your mouth backs it in what you say and what you know in your presentation, then you're that much ahead of everybody else too, okay? Consumers are skeptical about too polished of a salesperson. I agree with that. Like the old, you got to be a hammer, you got to close. That's 1975, maybe even up to 1985. That doesn't apply today. Today it's about education, helping people get educated, showing them that you're the resource, showing them that you know what you're doing, that you're educated, that you know your business. You share market insights with them. All right. They see your videos, so you have credibility. They show that you're authentic. You demonstrate your expertise online. Short form, I would say, being most important, and then throw in some longer ones now and then. Hell, you can even have a podcast like I'm doing right now. This podcast started off as a group call 12 years ago, and now it's turned into a podcast. That's why most people just listen to it later. All right, I ended up recording this with a few people on, but most of the time, most people listen to it after, and I get my numbers. I know a decent amount of people do that too, so that's great. But it gives credibility in everything else I do. My YouTube channel, my social media. I'll give you mine. Okay, ready? Facebook. Now, for some people, this is antiquated, but for me, it works well. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, now X, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. Okay, those are the ones that I use, and I'm consistent with my marketing and my videos and so forth. I even have a YouTube guy helping me with my SEO and all that, all that good stuff, and it definitely helps if you have people helping with it, because you can only get so far on your own. Your job is to create the content, and you can even get some coaching there too, right? But as long as you're building and maintaining your gold mine, which is your database, however you want to do that. I know people that can still go out doing it, door knocking, and it's constantly adding to their database. That's great. Calling and adding, social media and adding, YouTube. However, you're going to be proactive. I recommend a little of everything because I think that's what gets you the best results. But once you have your database to a certain point, you're a rock star, and then you can pretty much do whatever you want. All right, but the key is, how do you get it there? I think that's the key right there. How do you get it there? Okay. Look at this. Number 6 on my list. Emotional intelligence is a competitive advantage. I believe that. All right. So real estate is emotional. Look at people are getting divorced. They're getting relocated. They have financial stress they need to sell. They're first-time buyers. Okay. They're getting married. They're downsizing. They have a death in the family. They have fear of rates and affordability. They have, there's so many different reasons why people are moving. Your job, so how do you win over, or I should say, get somebody to use you when they're going through any one of these that I just mentioned? And I would say listening is an art form. Okay, it's unbelievably important in today's world. It's always been unbelievably important, but it just seems like people are starting to get it more lately than in the past. So if you're like me and you have the ADHD brain to the max, the old pattern that I learned from NLP training, right, which is, okay, repeat and approve and answer. Oh, so you're not moving right now. You know what? I totally understand. Things are up there. It's crazy. So however I approve in my own voice, whatever I'm thinking. Oh, you're not selling. Well, that's a great neighborhood. I mean, why would you? I mean, geez, how long have you lived there? Right. So whatever I'm going to repeat and approve in my own personality and then ask the next question on my script. I just gave you the just sold, or could be the just listed, right? Could be expired for sale by owners. There's a number of calls I used to make to get business. But, so repeating and approving forced me to listen. And when I started doing it over the phone, I would write it down on a piece of paper, all the answers they'd give me. So when I was done and I fed it all back to them, right, if they were thinking about moving, getting an appointment, they could tell I was listening. When people can tell you're listening, the old saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That is unbelievably 100% accurate in real estate. And I'm going to tell you something, because I started young. It took me a long time to learn that. I would say 5 years in, 6 years in, until I really started to realize I'm doing this the hard way. Fortunately for me, I was only 26 at that time, 25, 26 years old. But because I got my license at 19, my first full-time year, I was 20. And back then, the closest person to my office was 42. There's me, and then everybody was, back then the average age of a realtor was 60-something. And then there's me. They used to call me the kid. And you know what? I did a decent amount of business because I was a hardworking, energetic person. Then, when I started learning some of these things like NLP tactics, and I wouldn't get crazy with NLP. To me, the pattern is what's the most important. Open-ended questions, whatever they say, repeat, approve. Ask your next question. Make it conversational. You don't want them to think you're scripted, and the only way to do that is by knowing. And then eventually it just becomes the way you talk and the way you listen to people, and then they really appreciate that. I do it in my coaching now, and, I have a 50-50 rule. I learned it years ago in the Mike Ferry system, which is 50% of the time or less I do the talking. If I can get them talking 70, 80% of the time, I'm going to get a listing signed. I'm going to get a contract signed if it's a buyer. Because today, everybody's your client. I actually love that. That makes the business way better. Okay, so, all important stuff that we talked about today, and I think it's never been more important than today for you to, look, you need to be the expert. That was my first one. You're the advisor. You're the expert. And that comes by knowing the market and what's happening. You need to know all that. That's really, really important for you to know. Okay, now, how do you know all that? Well, because you're doing your homework. You're figuring it out. Right? That's how you know it. Communication wins. I mean, the speed to communicate, which is response time. That's number 2 on my list. If you remember, answer quickly, follow up consistently, keep them informed. That's what you want to do. That's the way to be right now. And if you're not doing that, fix it immediately. All right? Be the local expert. All right? Remember, neighborhoods, schools, inventory, building, all that stuff is something that you need to keep track of in order to be, good at this business. All right. Number 4 is relationship beats transactional every single time. Become the one who builds, maintains the relationship. That's the key. Definitely, I think it is 100% of the time. The market has shifted from selling homes to building credibility. You got to build credibility. make sure that you're the most credible person. How do you do that? Well, part of it is by being out there. You have the ability. Like, look, when I started in 1985, to get the amount of credibility that you could have just by using social media, I would have had to get bus benches, billboards, TV, newspapers, radio. You guys can get that from social media right now for free, and very few agents take advantage of it as much as they should. All right, and then emotional intelligence is better than competitive advantage. I think emotional intelligence is a competitive advantage, I should say. Knowing exactly why people are doing something and digging deep, get involved in what they're talking about and what their story is and why they're moving. Okay, any questions? Hit star 6, I can hear you. Questions, please, questions? Or I've explained it so explicitly that you don't have any questions, and that's normally what happens. All right, folks, keep it rocking. We'll do this again in a week. If you need me, call me anytime. Thank you very much for your time.